Welcome to Charmed Life, a radio show discussing spirituality, magic, and the unconditional love of the universe. Thanks for tuning in. And I'm your host, Tricia Carr. Well, I'm actually doing this episode remotely. I'm actually doing it from my home. This is like my little home studio. This is where I teach most of my classes from. And, you know, it just felt a little bit cozier today. You may hear or see a kitty cat in the background. And so welcome to my home tonight. This is actually the pre-Christmas episode, if you celebrate Christmas at all. I'm doing it at a special time if you're watching live or listening live. It is actually what is it, about a week before Christmas at this time. And this is going to be broadcast on all of my outlets again on Sunday. And of course, you'll be able to find it on youtube.com/Tricia Carr, iTunes, and all of the different ways that you can find this Charmed Life program of mine. I'm really excited about today. I have on for another time. She's called the Chakra Diva. She is a crystal Reiki master and an intuitive chakra coach. Amber Poole, welcome to Charmed Life.
Hi, hon. I'm so excited.
You're so sweet. Thank you so much for being here today. You have so much going on all the time. You're so highly creative. You just an Oprah in the making. And, and so tell everyone about the kind of work you've been up to.
Absolutely. So I'm a crystal Reiki energy healer in general. That's my practice. That's what I do all the time. And I recently added chakra coaching, which I graduated from the integrative nutrition school and food of spirit. So I'm combining food in with my work now, which always fascinates me about food. I've always been drawn to it and started off as a food blogger. So I just wanted to add that to my services as well.
I love that. I know that you started off as a food blogger, and, you know, I have a background in cuisine as well. So I think that is so fascinating how, you know, because it's very creative. Being a food blogger, that's a very creative expression. So it really makes sense to segue into something like nutritional coaching, health coaching, and energy coaching as you have.
Yes, I think it all goes together, even though it doesn't. Like when you go to see an energy healer, they always want to work with your energy. But then you need these life skills when you leave of what to do next. And are you familiar with Charlie Goldsmith? I believe his name is. He's energy healer in Australia. He has a show on TLC, but he's more scientific. And I was watching an episode and he's eating blueberries and the whole entire time while he's giving out energy. And I thought, well, that's really interesting. You know, it's like, why is he doing that? What is that doing for your body versus processed foods? I don't feel as good on processed foods, but being psychic, what do we know, Tricia? You have to drink tons of what? Water.
Oh, right here. I drink so much water when I'm broadcasting. And it, you know, like when I do a show on my own, I just have to pause and just take a sip. I can't not. Yeah, absolutely. Now I get thirsty every time I talk about it too.
Well, I've already gone through mine, so I'm hoping that it's still.
You got a full liter.
Oh no. What am I going to do? But being psychic, it's like I feel we need even more water and to take care of our energy even better than or be more aware of it. You know what I mean? Like when we're doing our work and what works for our body, what doesn't work for our body. So when I am eating better, and that means not processed. Processed really messes me up. Sugar, alcohol, those things just mess up my system. So I stay away from it. Then I feel like I'm a better channel to have spirit run through me and give messages better.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and you know, we already live in a world where, I mean, what you're speaking to, the things that you avoid are all less natural. They're not natural or further away from the, you know, nature. And that's what we are. And actually spirituality, being psychic, is very natural. And so we are always working toward becoming more and more natural. So as the intention to be psychic, then it would be dissonant. It would not resonate for us to consciously be engaged in things that are less than natural. You know what I mean? Like it's just giving us that signal. That's what it makes so much sense to me to think about it that way. And water, you know, being really important as an energy conductor and wanting to be a clear channel, you're always wanting to raise your vibration. And again, eating is really the way to do that.
And so that's why people fast. right? When they go into those fasting because they're trying to get into that really high meditative state and they do juice fasts and things like that, it's because they're not eating the lower, denser energy. So even if you look at it from a chakra point of view, some people look at it from colors. Mm-hmm. So proteins would be your base. So if you're really scattered in thoughts, and maybe you need protein. So that could be beans, but it can also be animal meat as well. Some people do really well with animal meat and some people don't. So I think it's very individualized for everybody of what works for them and what they need.
I actually just I've been asking people lately that I come into contact with who are, healers or intuitives or whatever. And I just asked them on a sidebar because, I know that this planet was seeded, basically. We know that star beings, interdimensionals, other planetary beings, well, you and I know, not necessarily everyone knows.
On this one.
Yeah, not necessarily everyone knows that, but you and I know. And so if it's news to you, guess what? That's true. So that we were seeded, and there are a lot of different what used to be considered alien or extraterrestrial races that we sort of stem from. But at this point, we are native. You know what I mean? Like, we are indigenous. It's been long enough, and besides the fact that we literally were born here, so that's what we look at. We don't really have to look at what the Arcturians do or do not eat in order to understand. But I have been curious about whether humans do have a more of a natural way to either consume flesh or not, or anything on the plane of things that are natural, obviously not the unnatural items that we're talking about. But if because my cats are definitely carnivores, there's no question about it. They are carnivorous animals, and horses are definitely vegetarian. So I'm just like, are humans definitely more naturally one or the other? And I think the answer is no. I think that we are omnivorous, and it's then more individualized. Is that your experience personally? Like, it's totally okay if you have a different opinion. I'd really love to hear people's experience or opinion about that.
So I was vegetarian for 10 years, almost 11 years, just because I wasn't drawn to eat meat by any chance. Mm-hmm. I just didn't want it. It wasn't in my radar. And I became pregnant, and the first thing I wanted was a burger. I'm like, I want that burger. And since then I've had meat, but I found out that if I don't, my hair starts to fall out. And I think I was trying to tell you this before. My hair it gets really loose and it just falls out. So I added in vitamins like B12, which helps with that. But my body needs meat to function. And I don't know if that's because I'm so high up all the time meditating all day long that I need to be grounded. And what better source do you have than an animal that has all four, legs on the ground in Mother Earth? You are eating that energy that cows eat, or the chicken is in, or whatever it is that's surrounded. Whereas, your vegetables or fruits can be off the ground in trees. That's a higher energy that you're putting into your body. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting how each food has a different vibration to it.
There are certain foods, like, say, carrot. A carrot has that grounded earth, very yin, feminine energy in the root part of it, but then it has the yang, very expressive, fiery, yang kind of, like the masculine. And so the whole fruit, or the whole vegetable, the whole piece of it is really valuable because it has a complete kind of energy to it, complete vibration to it. Yet it doesn't have, as you're saying, like, it wouldn't have protein. And if your hair falls out because you don't have enough protein, then I'm saying you're pretty cute with your hair. I'm not going to say you're cuter with your hair because I haven't seen you bald, but you're definitely cute with hair. And well, like you were saying, the animals with their 4 feet on the ground, or even if it were fish directly submerged in the element of water. I mean, that's very it's emotional, but it's a very grounding kind of experience as well, very much in the energy of Gaia. Mm-hmm.
Fish is usually for your sacral, which is the emotions going with the flow, right? They free flow in with the water and they go downstream, and they're not fighting against the stream. They're in the flow. So if you emotionally need to be in the flow of things, you would add more fish to your diet. If you're very
Oh my
scattered,
gosh.
you want to have more protein to your diet to keep you grounded. If you're very logical, right, you might overeat meat, then you might want to try salads and smoothies and teas that's more high vibrational. So it's really interesting when you're looking at people. I like to look at them and decide, are they where they need to be eating vibrationally? Does it match with them? And more than time, it's not. It's like, I'm at work and there's a vending machine, I'm grabbing the Doritos, or I have a sugar addiction because I have an emotional problem. And we always need to look at the mind, the body, and the spirit all together.
And so how would you suggest for folks, because obviously they can't see a Reiki master, chakra intuitive coach every single day, how would you recommend that they feel into their own experience in a genuine way, in a way that's balanced? Because like sometimes we go with our urges, which would be more on the side of addiction and imbalance rather than the holistic inner voice of intuitive. How do you coach your clients to be able to get in touch with that?
You want to eat the whole rainbow. Right. So every day eat the whole rainbow. I used to keep a dialogue, or what's that called? Daily log, that I would have to eat, enough blue or purple. So purple can also be chocolate, dark chocolate fits purple, but also with eggplant and teas kind of go up there too. The higher you go, you turn into teas and higher vibration. So I would always look at it and go, I've had a lot of white today. I've had a lot of yellow today. So I'm really in my solar plexus. Do I want to add energy in my solar plexus, or maybe I want to add it, in my heart? Have I had any greens lately? Probably not. So I want to come from my heart space. So I always look at the color of it to make sure that I'm having enough of it.
Blue is actually really hard to eat. There's blueberries, and there just aren't a lot of blue foods.
There's not a lot of blue.
So
like seaweed in for the throat chakra. Soup comes in the category soup, so it'd be like broth and things like that. Teas come in up here for more of the third eye, and then fasting comes in for the crown chakra. So it's and fasting doesn't have to be like fasting for 7 days. It could be fasting for one period.
Apparently, I naturally, according to people that outline the diet of, what is it called, like intermediate fasting or something like that. I do that every single day. So I don't eat for 12 hours every single day. From the time that I eat my last meal until the time I eat my first meal, it's like 12 hours, and that's called intermediate, I think, fasting or something like that. That's just how I've always done that. I remember doing it since I was a teenager. I can't really force myself to eat in the morning. It's
intuitive thing for you.
And well, it's intuitive, and it's just like my body just says no to it, and it really doesn't feel imbalanced. It really feels normal to me. When you said the sea vegetables like seaweed, I used to eat a lot of seaweed to find that, because it's not a part of the American culture. It's harder to eat that. You have to prepare it yourself, which, note to self, prepare your own sea vegetable salads so that you can have them throughout the week. But it is really important, I think, indigenously for us to eat sea vegetable more than we do typically in the US culture, because it's 80% of the vegetation of the planet is sea vegetable. And so we're probably really lacking in it. And if it is something that really feeds these higher chakras, then I guess it's not really a surprise, at least in the US, that we might be a little bit underserved in that area.
The US focuses on the SAD diet, right? So it's a standard American diet, which is the processed stuff. So when I go out with friends and I'm like, what are we having? It's usually out of a box, right? Oh, I just made this. It's the stuffers or whatever it's called, Stouffer's, that I just threw it into the oven. And I'm like, what? What is that? And I think that society as a whole, especially in America, just needs to go back to the basics. And that's also going back to understanding yourself. Like, what does your body need? And I just had my blood withdrawn, I guess 2 months ago, and he said, you have a low vitamin B12. And interestingly, I bought the B12 vitamins a month before, just intuitively going, you know what? I think I'm going to need these.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Right? And you just know your body so well that you'll know when you wake up if you need some orange juice because you might have a cold that's coming on, or versus, I need a really big breakfast to hold me over, eggs or something like that, throughout lunch and things like that.
I've always really loved fish. It's always been something that I prefer. And I also know about myself, as you said, fish would be something that's very oriented to the sacral energy. I'm very sacral dominant, you know. It's actually I'm a Pisces, you know, so I'm a watery sign anyway. It's always been something that I gravitated to. I want to point out too, before we move on away from the whether we eat animal flesh or not, this is not to contradict anyone who has a personal ethical feeling about it, but I do recognize, and I always have, even since I was really young, that plants also are sentient. They just are. And that plants, they actually do try to defend themselves when they are being harvested.
The one with the music, that it goes in with the music and they actually move. That was the sunflowers. Like, they have their own personality.
They do. And, you know, here's the thing. You have to eat what you are comfortable eating. You have to eat what your heart will let you. It should be harder for us to hold space for the fact that someone that we love is suffering than a stranger. Not that we don't care about strangers, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just natural that it's, you know, a cow is more similar to us. And so we should hold deeper presence for that animal. You know what I mean?
I think, well, and also that's why we pray, right? Over our food. We thank the food for coming to us and things like that. I also do like Reiki above my water. Dr. Komodo, when he said really good things to his water, but he says really good things to his water, right? And then all the crystals look beautiful. And when he said nasty things, and then they did that for plants too. So I always feel like giving that extra prayer to your food before you eat is also adding good high vibrational energy, because you're transferring the energy of the food into your body and you're digesting it. So you never cook while you're mad, you know, or stab your steak or anything like that before you eat it, because you're eating that energy as well.
And, you know, another thing that I've always found curious too, when people will say, you know, you don't want to eat meat because it's dead. And that's curious to me, because actually it's not necessarily dead. It still has life force in it. Everything does. But vegetables too, if you harvest them, then they're just as dead. You know, like if we've harvested them, then we've stopped their life too. So I've never really understood that part of it, how people think that an animal is dead, but a plant isn't dead if you harvest it.
You take it out.
You know what I mean? Does that make any sense to you?
Well, I see auras.
You take its life.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that my food, if it's a cow or if it's a carrot, still has an aura around it. And I can still see the color around it, right? There's still that energy within it. We used to do that, like practicing with my kids. We would stare at blueberries and strawberries and see auras, auras around the fruits.
Does that help you to select your food by actually using your talent and ability of seeing auras?
I never even thought about that, to be honest with you. I should do that while I'm shopping. It just takes me a little bit. I should hold up my potato and really stare at it to make sure it is the best potato. You might be onto something, Tricia.
Or the most aligned. The most aligned, at least. The one most aligned for you.
I used to bring my pendulum into the grocery store. Do I need this or this? Is this one good for me or is this one good for me?
That takes a long time though, doesn't it?
It really does. It does.
Yeah. And depending on your neighborhood, you could get arrested.
Yes. I went with family one day and my mother caught me down the aisle and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know which one I should take." And I couldn't remember if it was vitamins or if it was Tylenol, whatever it was. And she's like, "Oh, put that thing away." And then when we went out to a restaurant, she pulls out her pendulum and she's like, "Do I do this one or this one?" Like, it's so nonchalantly now. I think it's because we're just so psychic all the time. It's like an everyday practice.
Oh, that's hilarious. I love that. Generally speaking, I don't resonate with poultry. And one part of the reason why maybe I don't is because it's actually more difficult to find poultry that has been treated well in its life before it was slaughtered. But I think also just energetically, for some reason, poultry does. It's not that I completely I abstain from it, not right now. And there are times when I am, just again, depending on what feels like I need at the time. Or pescatarian, I actually lean to a lot. What I think is really important for us to recognize is the GMO situation, right, Amber?
Oh, yes, that bothers me greatly.
And here's the thing that I think is rather sneaky is that people who are abstaining from animal products is more conscious. What is more conscious for them? Then they are being sold things like soy products
Yes.
that are completely genetically modified and completely unnatural. I like to stay in the light about this too. Honestly, I like to try to stay out of blame, because blame is not the way that we actually come to integration. And I also have compassion for the farmers of America who are absolutely compelled to use these products, the genetically modified organisms.
Yes. And I went into the store the other day and I bought cornstarch and it says non-GMO on it. And I thought, wow, it didn't even occur to me. I would normally just grab, the container of cornstarch and go off on my way. But now I'm like, wait a minute, I have to look into this. This is corn product. If it's a corn product, we have to look into it a little bit further. And a lot of people don't know what GMO does, or what it is or how it acts, but there's been so many studies done. And I feel like the United States doesn't have as many standards as other countries need and should have. So we are the educators. And also to note that just because it's in the natural section doesn't mean that it's okay. You still have to look at the back of it and read everything and find out where it's coming from. Because like China's standards of organic are a lot different than our standards. So even though it says organic, where is it coming from? That's when you really want to get to know your farmers. That's when you really want to know what's in your food. And I ask all of the farmers around here. I know them. Like, I'm calling them. Hi, what do you have this week? What's going on? What are your practices? How do you farm? Ask. Like, we need to know this stuff.
And it takes a little time. It takes, to get as educated as you are, and just know that it's okay to start where you are. Start with the meal that you're on. Start with the day that you can begin to do the research. And of course, as we know, setting the intention and not being in judgment or overwhelmed about where you are right now, because we're always going to be improving. We just always are going to be.
Yes. So even if you can't, like my friend said, I can't afford the organic broccoli. And I said, well, eating conventional broccoli is still better than eating no broccoli.
That's true.
So I'd rather you do that than not have anything.
If you don't have another option right now, then you can pray over it and allow the energy to be balanced out in the collective consciousness, like the collective subconscious. Allow your body to support whatever you're going to receive, give, still bless it. And you can literally, we know this, you can energy heal what's before you.
Yes, you can. That's because we are energy healers.
That's right.
And energy healing can look like just a prayer or, a good vibration to your food prior to eating it.
Yeah.
For people who don't know how to do energy healing or how to high vibe their food, I'm always say, thank you, gratitude. Thank you for this food that I'm about to receive.
Mm-hmm. And allowing and just feeling that in your heart.
Yes, because a lot of people don't have that on their plates, or, they don't have a full meal or whatever it may be. So there's always gratitude and the people around you that you're sharing it with.
And of course, to pay gratitude to Gaia for creating the abundance, and to the plant or whatever has sacrificed its life, allowed its energy to be transmuted within you and to sustain and support you and your family. That's really powerful.
I am not a farmer though. I try every year. I have, that little box outside, and I plant and I look over it, and somehow I do not have that thumb. I try so hard.
I've had herbs in the backyard. That's the best that I can do right now. I would love to cultivate my own food, but yeah, right now I live in the city. And speaking of starting with where you are and being precise about your diet, as healthfully as you may want to eat, we still are in, again, a world that is unnatural. So the environment that you're in, the air pollution, whatever is going on, we're constantly responding to that. And we're constantly responding to whatever we're exposed to in the emotional world as well. So how do you recommend people to really stay on top of responding in their diet and in their energy bodies?
Well, I was thinking that people in general, because you can be so swallowed in reading news about food and how terrible it is and bringing you down in so many different ways. And I always tell people that your money, wherever you spend it on food, that is going to supply everybody. So if everybody's doing processed food, then that's what people are really going to look at. When organic was just coming out and it was a fortune more than it is now, I was spending my money there because it meant so much to me that we have this movement for organic. And now I can buy milk for $5 and it's organic, which makes me feel good because it's usually $4, right? So it's only $1 difference. And knowing that, not having the hormones from the conventional into my body and processing that. I actually don't drink dairy whatsoever, but my family does. So I buy organic for them. So know that when you're spending your money, wherever you're spending it at, you are supporting a bigger cause than just that little, people don't realize how big it is. Box cereals all the time. And I'm like, well, why don't we support the oatmeal? Let's see how big the oatmeal industry can get.
That's beautiful to realize that, to be in that kind, hold that awareness, hold that presence, and celebrate yourself, join yourself to the joy of supporting the oatmeal rather than the General Mills cereal that's all genetically modified corn.
Yes. Tons of chemicals in there, process, and there's so many health behavioral things with it too. Like we found out about the red coloring. Don't have red coloring because it's for ADHD and it gives hyperactivity. So then everybody takes it out. Well, they didn't take it out until we made a big deal about it.
Right.
So it's always about supporting what's working for our body, supporting the broccoli, the cauliflower, those kind of things. And it needs to get more attention than the boxed cereal with all the sugar in it.
The broccoli and the cauliflower, as you just brought up. And I was inspired for us to look into the distinction there because they're very similar in that they're cruciferous and they bloom the way that they do. They actually have nervous systems and they have a lot of similarities. But then as you were talking about the colors and how they resonate on different vibrational frequencies, which is evident by the colors. The cauliflower being white, that's very, very, very high, basically soul star chakra above or crown to soul star. And then the green being of the heart. What do you think about, I don't know. I'm just like, they're so different. They're so same, but they're so different.
I don't do well with doing the color model. Like for chakra, a lot of people do the color model, which is one way to absolutely the daily log and see what you're having. But they grow in the ground, right? So they're more grounding. So I'm always looking at how they grow, versus hanging on a tree. What kind of air are they getting up there? Are they underneath the ground? Their growing practices, you have a tomato, it's red, but they're so juicy and it's growing up and out, gives it a different vibration. So I always put broccoli and cauliflower in with more grounding kind of foods, especially if you're vegan or if you're vegetarian and you're looking for that kind of energy source. But if you're going to do the color, so it's kind of like this two-way, some people do very color oriented, but again, there's no blues, there's no purples, there's only one and one, eggplant, blueberries. Yeah. So there has to be another kind of structure. And that's where the lighter foods come up here, especially if you're trying to be psychic or if you're trying to have this bigger conscious awareness of fasting and things like that, the smoothies go up. So I look at broccoli and cauliflower more grounding than in with the colors, if that makes sense. Because like the white potato, grounding, sweet potato, grounding.
That makes so much sense. So I think, like you said, eating the rainbow is a great way to pay attention that you're having a balanced diet. But just as I was saying about the carrot, holding both very masculine, very feminine energies, very yin, very yang in the entire vegetable, that makes a lot of sense to me. I think that was maybe my question because that's what I wanted to get at. I'm like, they're so similar. How could they be so different on the spectrum of vibration? But maybe the color is not necessarily speaking to the frequency or the vibrational landing point.
Right. Because I wanted to know how I can do this. So this is how I got all involved. Yes, I did blogging, but I scan people when I'm giving them like energy healings, and I would hear intuitively or from my guides, this person shouldn't have dairy, or I would see Doritos or I would see chips. And I'm like, this is so bizarre. Like, why am I getting these messages? Usually it's when I'm on their solar, I can like sense what kind of food they have. And the client always asks, yes, I just had Doritos, or I had fish last night, or whatever it may be. And I'm like, well, why am I getting that? And I feel like that's the energy of their food that's still coming out while I'm reading. So if it's something that's processed, it's not like very high vibrational and it's holding them down. So I would, okay, why don't you try not having, gluten for a week? Let me know how you feel. You're going to detox and you're going to hate it, right? Because after you get rid of all of the bad stuff within you, you feel lousy because your body's used to it and it's detoxing, right? It's like all the toxins are coming out of you. And I remember when I first gave up gluten, I opened up the cabinets and I was like, what can I have? I just want something. And I ate it and I went, I felt so much better. And it's because the toxins were releasing. So I had to do it all over again. So you're gluten-free as well, correct?
I am. I'm actually pretty much grain free. I do eat some grains every now and again, but for the most part, even rice and of course corn, even, it's almost impossible to get corn that's not genetically modified. But corn and rice are also not so great. I really shouldn't have them. I don't have a direct reaction with them. It's more like if I'm having something like, if I'm having one of those other grains regularly, then I'll start to kind of bog down and my digestion will start to go off. Gluten, I am non-celiac, but I'm completely intolerant. I have an autoimmune response to it. So I run a fever, like 104. The pain is debilitating. Before I knew what it was causing this problem. And it's always been that way. I think the genetically modified foods has been increasing into our market. But even when I was a teenager, my digestion was not so great. And for me, it's gluten toxicity. If I get exposed to it, before I knew what it was, I was going to the hospital. It was so bad. And they were, my fever was off the charts and they were giving me CT scans. They thought that I was septic or maybe I had pancreatitis or gallbladder disease. Like they didn't know what was going on with me, but I was a serious case.
I swear a lot of that gallbladder issue is gluten sensitivity or gluten related. And every time I ask a doctor, they're like, no, it's not. I said, well, I don't know. I got a pain right here on my side. That's because your gallbladder needs to be taken out. There's no reason that my gallbladder needs to be taken out. So when I took out the gluten, I don't have pains anymore. And I thought, wow, how come other people don't see that or know that? You could save your gallbladder.
Right? No kidding. Or some other organs. I have friends who have like polycystic ovarian symptoms, or they have fibroid tumors or endometriosis. There's all kinds of other diseases and then they're like, well, if you have the fibroids, so we just need to give you a hysterectomy. And I have a friend who was just like, absolutely not. And she didn't actually want to even keep her major organ because she wanted to have children. She just didn't want to lose a major organ. And so she got herself really healthy and she made it through. They actually did remove fibroids from her, but she was absolutely able to keep her major organ. Speaking of taking stuff out of your body, before I got gluten detoxed, my wisdom teeth, they're actually impacted. And they would get so inflamed, like about every other month, they would get really, really inflamed, really painful. And I just kept kind of putting off getting the surgery. And then when I detoxed from gluten, learned all about what was going on with me, they've never gotten inflamed one more single time. And my dentist is like, you should just leave them in now because they're not bothering you and you shouldn't you shouldn't take them out. And they haven't moved isn't that crazy? All kinds of things cleared up. My gastroenterologist he was like, oh yeah, you sometimes get cold sores, right? And I was like, yeah, actually I haven't had one in a long time. When I went, grain free, I stopped getting cold sores, even though that's just a virus that I'm always going to have and it's dormant or active. And he's like, isn't that amazing? My gastroenterologist is like, isn't that amazing? And I'm like, yeah, I know. A lot of things cleared up.
That's why I always whenever I go into the doctors, I'm like, how much nutrition do you know? And usually doctors do not get trained in nutrition, very, very minimum. Right. So, when I was at the neurologist and I'm asking all of these questions and he's like, why are we talking about food? And I'm like, don't you know that everything's related? Where did that happen? Like, like, right. You're so educated. You're working on my brain, but you don't know the gut and the brain are connected. And I know this. And he goes, how much work do you do on Google? I'm like, no, it's out there. I'll start sending you the articles.
Dr. Bruce Lipton recently said, I heard him say that 90% of doctor's visits, or 95, he may have said, are related to stress, somehow related to stress.
I believe that 100%, because I know that that's when my body definitely caves in. If I'm stressed out, and I even decided November 1st, I'm like, I am mentally stressed. I'm going to go take off for 2 months. And then November 3rd, my body gave out. So it was like, mentally, I knew it. And then physically, I got struck by it. So stress plays a huge role. And yet, what do we continue to do it? It's kind of like Christmas. Right? How many people do we have to go out of our way for Christmas presents? And it gets stressful, right? We have teachers. I'm a mom, so I have teachers. I have Boy Scouts. You got dance. You got friends. There's so many people that feel like if you don't give them something, it's the giving month, then you're on their bad list. You just didn't make it. And, Christmas cards. So people get really stressed out during this time. I don't know. I just kind of want to go, I'm only going to bake cookies and that's all you get. And there's a lot of love in those cookies. Done. Yeah.
You're like, I prayed over them. Yeah. I was loving them as I did it.
They're made out of almond flour and you will love them. And then the rest of the family that eats them and they're like, what is this? I'm like, your taste buds just haven't adjusted.
How do you encourage people to go ahead and make an individual decision inside a unit that is different than your needs?
I have a family of 4, right? I have my kids and my husband and I do not see eye to eye on cooking. He's like, stop trying to feed me some quinoa. I don't know what that stuff is. And I'm like, it's a seed. It's okay. It's all good. He's like, no, don't do it. So when I feel like being vegetarian, what I'm really good at, then it takes me a while to eat meat. It's not one of my likings. I don't just go gravitate towards it. I will gravitate towards something else. I make myself something special and then I make him his meat. So we'll make, like a tenderloin or a pork or whatever, but it's kind of like the paleo diet. So when you do everything individually. Mm-hmm. So I have sides, I have a meat, a protein, and I have a salad. And then we all sit at the table and you take what you want, and you make enough so that there's leftovers. So I'm not just making one meal. Sometimes we rotate it throughout the week. So if I had green beans one night and I have leftovers, I might have it for the next night, or I might have it for lunch or whatever it may be. But I make a lot of different stuff. So whatever you want, we had beet and sauerkraut kimchi. So we had that on the table and nobody wants it. I put it into a bowl and everybody just stares at it. So I'm like the only one eating off of it, which is fine. But then there's a salad and then there's the protein and then there's mac and cheese for my kids. It's a healthier version, but it's still there. And you take what you want. It's kind of like a buffet style, but you shouldn't give up on you. My daughter sees that. And she goes, Mommy, can I have some salad? Can I try that? And that's what you want. You're educating them without them knowing it. Don't tell them that.
Leading by example.
Yes. My husband said to me the other day, he's like, I do hear you. I feel like I can't eat anything because you tell me how unhealthy everything is. But when he went to the grocery store, he picked out organic milk. And although I don't have any dairy, right? I'm not for dairy, but if they're going to have it, I want them to have the best quality kind that there is. So he actually went to the store and did his own and brought it home. And I'm like, that's really good. So it's making a difference. They're still seeing it no matter what. So I still do what I have to do. I deliver it. And then if they choose to try it, great. And if they don't, they'll get on board one day.
I wanted to talk about how the work that you're doing around this. So you do scan people in your intuitive chakra coaching. So you scan people and support them in the intuitive space. You're able to read their energy bodies and see how that can be balanced. And this is what you're doing as a service. And you can do this remotely as well, right?
Yes, I can do it remotely. I can tell if somebody just had pizza or had chips or, there's no cheating when you're reading energy, Right. That's the funny part about it, because they're like, oh, she won't know if I had, and I just psychically, I tune in. I'm like, I see those, chips or whatever it is. That's the fun part about it. But it's also finding out why they're eating it. So it's a coaching program. We see each other twice a month. It may not just be, I eat candy all the time, or I go for chocolate. Well, what's drawing you to that? So we do different exercises. One of them is you repeat the same word. So if you have, like chocolate all the time, and I say chocolate, and you would say something in response to it. What's your first memory? What's your first thought of chocolate? And after you say it about 50 times, you get down to, well, it reminds me of ooey gooey or goodness, or my mom loves me. And I'm like, there's the emotional attachment to why you're eating chocolate, or if you're stressed out, or what emotionally you need to get off of that. So it's not just, I have cravings for chocolate all the time and I can't help myself. I want to know more about it. It's the whole body spirit connection.
That's beautiful. That is really deep work. It's not just stopping at, oh, I need to stop eating it. I'm bad. I'm a bad girl. I mean, we do have to at some point just take action, and we have to do a detox, and we have to do, we have to take action,
Right.
But we can't stay in punishment of ourselves. That's not the work that needs to be done. It wants that deeper work. So you offer this as I love it, twice per month. Yes. And then they can,
we talk for an hour, and we go through recipes. So some people just don't know how to eat healthy. They
right.
Or they don't know, and they really want to. Mm-hmm. So I provide recipes. If they're local, we can go to the grocery store, and I like to take people through a tour. This is what you really want to have. This is what you don't really want to have. You stay in these aisles and blah, 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 blah. So I like doing that. Some people don't know the difference between farm Atlantic salmon versus farm raised salmon. Two big different things. They just buy it and think that it's okay. So we offer that. I offer that in person as well.
So tell people, and this is available on your website, so tell people how they can get in touch with you for this and the other services. What are the other things that you're offering, the other work that you're offering?
Yep. So I do crystal Reiki. So that's when I'm scanning people and I'm reading your energy, what you're putting out, which is really interesting because a lot of times you don't know what you're putting out. The universe is receiving and that message is being sent back, right? So you just assume, I want to manifest something, and then you might not realize that your energy is trying so hard to manifest something that you're actually draining yourself out. So that's the kind of connection that I like to make. I also work on negative beliefs. So how to, let's say you have this negative belief and I want to find out why, where it's coming from, and how to replace it. So we're always upping the energy. So that's called psychic intuitive counseling kind of deal. So I do that. The crystal Reiki, which is Reiki and the energy body, long distance or in person, and also the chakra coaching.
Amazing. Wow. That's all so incredible. And I love the intuitive nutritional coaching. That's really powerful stuff, Amber. And I just thank you so much for coming on today. So your website is The Chakra Diva, and it is in the show notes. Whether you're watching on YouTube or on a podcast outlet, you can go and find Amber, but she is The Chakra Diva, the one and only. And I learned so much today. Thank you so much for reinvigorating me too. And I feel empowered. My diet has been pretty good lately, but you can always use more empowerment there, can't you?
You can always critique it a little bit more every day.
Oh, wait, you know what? We actually forgot to mention the Lightworkers Lab. Yo Lab. Hey.
Yes.
The Lightworkers Lab, that is an online spiritual community. You guys know, Charm Live listeners know because I talk about it every single episode. And Amber is also a teacher in the Lightworkers Lab. You can see her live up teaching and giving readings and chakra balancing on Wednesday mornings or afternoon for you, but mornings for me. So do join the Lightworkers Lab. You'll find it on Facebook as a group. Join it for fellowship and, again, free resources to express and grow spiritually. So thank you again, Amber Poole. And thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful holiday. I will see you before the new year. Thanks for tuning in. I love you, whoever you are.